Good evening and welcome to the March 26, 2019 meeting of the Norwood Trails Advisory Group. Quorum definitely being present and the hour having come and gone. Call this meeting to order. We're here in excuse me. We're here in scenic Norwood Town Hall. The building is ADA compliant, and we have several open seats in the corners over there, and we welcome an audience and we welcome input. Trails Advisory Committee group has been in place now for about a year and 2 months, so we're marching across town, literally and figuratively. We have a full agenda tonight, but we do have a special invited guest, so I'm going to table the minutes if I could. What I am going to do though is I'll ask everyone to march around the table figuratively and just identify yourself, please. John?
John Aprea.
Vic Babel.
Jerry Miller.
Greg Austin.
Oh, there's two.
Marguerite Krupp.
Oh, Sue Bartlett.
And in the back of the room,
Brian Palmetier.
Brian? Welcome.
Brian.
Hi.
Fran Rush.
Great.
Bob Flagg. Lee Leach.
Great. And I'm Joe Greeley. Thank you all for viewing and for coming. As I said, we have an invited guest tonight. Bob Flagg has joined us. Bob runs a number of volunteer programs elsewhere, and we're going to pick his brain and learn from his sage advice and guidance. Bob, if you could start off, if you could give us kind of a Reader's Digest of you and yours, if you could.
Sure. So I'm with the Friends of Blue Hills. We're starting our 12th year. We do all the trail, I shouldn't say all the trail work, but we do the majority of the trail work in the Blue Hills Reservation. There's about 7,000 acres there. There's about 125 miles of trails. When we first started, one of the things we did was an inventory of all the trails. That helped us construct a database. That database allows us to capture all the information on the trails. Then it allows us to capture the work that's been done. So every time someone works on the trail, they fill out a work report. That information is captured in our database. The database is accessible to all. So if you go on our website, friendsofthebluehills.org, there's about 4 pages on trails. There's a resources page there that will give you every section of trails within the Blue Hills. Once you get within the section, you'll see maps of the individual trails. You'll also see a trail assessment of the trail, which lists all the drainage structures, distances to intersections, and so forth. The database also captures all the work reports, so every time someone works on a trail, we've got a record of that, what they did, who did it, how much time they spent. The good thing with that is it gives us a lot of statistics, so if we're ever looking to raise money, we can go to the database. We know how many people have worked with us during the year, how much trail work's been done, gives us the hours and so forth. It's also good because when we do our monthly work events, we can go onto the database and we can look for work, so we could see what trails haven't been worked on over a period of time. So the database is a great tool. The next year, we started the Adopt a Trail program. So with the main trails program, we do monthly work events from April through December. We get usually somewhere about 20 to 30 people coming out to volunteer. We break into groups, usually about 5 people with 1 leader. We feel like that's a good number of people. You've got enough supervision, but then you're not overwhelming a leader. If you go out with 30 people, it's very difficult to train them new skills and so forth. With the Adopt a Trail program, the idea there was some people can't come out onto the monthly work events. So with the Adopt a Trail program, we identify a trail for someone to work on, or they can say what trail they'd like to work on. They need to get out there 2 to 3 times a year, and then they also complete a work report so we know that the work is getting done. We've got about 35 people on the Adopt a Trail program. So probably the toughest thing initially was to get a group of leaders trained. Initially, I was the primary leader, and then over time, we were able to cull people from the program that showed good aptitude or had previous experience. That allowed us to scale up the program to be able to take 20 and 30 people. Last year, at the first event, which was a Park Serve Day, that is a statewide event, we had 102 people come out to work at our event. And honestly speaking, that kind of overwhelmed us a little bit, but we were able to divide the people up, send them out on trails and so forth. When we go out on the trails, the primary work that we do is brushing. So that's cutting back any branches that are growing onto the trail. We might cut back small trees if they're growing towards the trail. Then we also do digging projects. So if you think of a trail going downhill, water wants to flow downhill. What we do is we put in diagonal structures on the trail such that it collects the water and gets the water off the trail. In the Blue Hills, we have some endangered species, and we have vernal pools and so forth. So it's really, really important for us to get the water off the trail, because when it's running down the trail, it's gathering silt, rocks, and so forth, and those get washed into the lowest spot, which tends to be vernal pools and so forth. So that's what we try to do. Obviously, we don't want the erosion on the trail, so it's very important that we block that. We feed everyone at the end of the event, which we think is very important. It's an opportunity for people to kind of hang out, make friends. One of the things that we've found with the program is a lot of people come to the program for the social aspect, to meet new people, to talk with other people and so forth. For me, that wasn't something that I was looking forward as much as getting the work done. So that's a side aspect that I think a lot of people gained with the program that I didn't realize. We've even had one marriage that came out of the program. So that's been really good. We work for basically DCR, Department of Conservation Recreation. They're the ones that are responsible to maintain all the state parks. But as you know, their budget tends to drop every year, so they have less and less money. In the Blue Hills, they focus on where people go. People go to Houghton's Pond. That's probably, they get literally thousands and thousands of people there on a good summer day. They spent a couple $1 million to build a beautiful bathhouse there, and so forth. So that's where they tend to spend their money. So they've been very appreciative of the work that we do. Some of the issues that we have had, though, is with wetlands, and now that's kind of rearing its head again. The folks from like Mass Wildlife want to make sure that we're not doing anything that would hurt a vernal pool. What they don't realize is that if we don't do our work, the silt gets washed into the vernal pool, so we're actually protecting the species, not hurting them. I don't know if you have specific questions. I mean, that's kind of a general overview. When we initially got going, I think I shared with you this introduction to the trails. This was my effort to kind of be global and look at all the different issues. Some might be applicable here, some I'm sure won't be applicable to you. So certainly I can talk about this.
I think
Question? Go ahead.
I think generally what we're trying to do is learn, kind of train the trainer.
Sure.
But instead of this, learn from yourself and from an organization that's already, like you said, is well underway at 12 years. We've also, I think a few of us have volunteered at other events. Marguerite especially has been all over the place, Lee as well. But we're just, we're at the point now where we've done a number of the things that you mentioned here in Norwood.
Right.
But now, one of the first things that I didn't really know what I was getting into a year and a half ago, and I volunteered to start an Adopt a Trail program here in Norwood,
Right.
based on the Friends of Blue Hills program.
Right.
But then, and here we are a year and a half later, and we're still not quite there yet. But so we really wanted to hear kind of a general overview of, how you make it happen, what a day looks like, how you keep in touch with the volunteers, and et cetera. So
What
I
kind of
think,
problems you ran into?
yeah.
Sure. So we were pretty lucky in that the Trails program already had the Friends of Blue Hills around them. So they already had a newsletter, they already had, a website, they had communications already built up. So that was good. So we were able to tap into that. One of the things that we also found is that we've had so many volunteers, a lot of people come with a variety of skills. So from the Trails program, we have someone now that's the webmaster for the organization. He handles the database and all that kind of thing. We've got the infrastructure around us to help us raise money, so that's been something that's been incredibly important. I think initially on, we tried to spend the time training leaders. So basically what we did there was, obviously we asked people who had prior experience. That was good. Some people came with that. I do a good bit of training on each work event. So if people are new, we'll go through a safety training with them, so we make sure that they understand how to work safely, how to work the tools. We certainly preach like a group kind of philosophy, so people can rotate around, do different jobs. We're always asking people who would like to step up and be leaders, so that's something, that's really important, because obviously we have people come and go. Raising money initially was a little bit of an issue. Being a new program, a lot of times people give you money for a new program. It's once you get up and running that they want to see improvements and growth and so forth to continue to get money. So I could definitely give you a list of companies that you might approach. I don't know if things are different where you represent a town versus a nonprofit. I don't know if they look at that in a different manner. Certainly, like I say, training is super important. So that's training to get people up and running, but it's also training for leaders. One of the things that I learned was that you need to stroke volunteers. Who'd have thunk it? So it's really, really important when people get out there. You're not trying to necessarily get the most work out of them. You're trying to develop a team, and you want to make sure that people are having a good time and that they enjoy what they're doing. So if they want to take a minute and talk with someone, that's certainly fine. We encourage that. Because the more relationships that people build, I think that makes it more likely to come back, and it makes them a little bit more dedicated, to what they do. So one of the things, I did bring a variety of material. I've got a lot more material at home that I haven't shared. New England Mountain Bike had a very good program on a running volunteer event. So what they did there is they have a half-day morning class where they talk about working with volunteers, how to stroke them and so forth. And then the afternoon, we actually went out and did work. So that was good. I had never done what's called a grade reversal. A grade reversal it's like a water bar. A lot of people are familiar with a water bar. So it's a diagonal cut in the trail. A grade reversal that we build is made of stone, so we'll dig in a trench and we'll put the rocks in and then dirt over it. It's much safer for like mountain bikers, and so forth. I think probably some of the problems or issues that we had to address, certainly working with DCR, because initially they said that we could do brushing, and I said, yeah, but we really need to do digging. So we had to build up a little bit of trust, in them. For me, I needed to be confident with the leaders that they could go off and lead a crew and do the work that we wanted. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to go out and scope out work. And what I'd prefer to do is take a leader out to look at the work, identify the work that's got to get done, so that they can then supervise the crew without my being there. We now probably have, I'd say, at least a dozen leaders that I feel are skilled, certainly to do brushing, and most of them can do digging, the maintenance. We have a few people like myself that will actually install, will site where you need, where you have drainage problems, and so forth. For me, initially when I started, I felt a little overwhelmed because I was trying to do it all. So I think a lot of it is try to do as much sharing, because the thing is as other people share and take responsibility, they're more in touch, I think, with the program and more committed.
Invested in it.
Invested, absolutely.
Sue, did you have a question?
Well, I kind of answered it. I just wanted to know that it's kind of the distinction between Friends of the Blue Hills and how you came, they were already set up, and then
Correct.
you came in and added to what they were already doing. So that you kind of answered that.
So what ended up happening there is they were looking for a treasurer for the organization. And I said, yeah, I could do that. So when I met with the executive director, we were talking about what the Friends do, and a lot of it was advocacy work that they weren't necessarily winning. So you start to wonder, how consequential are you if you're not winning the things that you advocate for? Mm-hmm. And I said, what you really should be doing is doing the trail work. And she said, oh, could you start that? And literally that's how the program started.
So were they just supporting walking there and trails and mapping trails before you were actually working on trails? Is that what?
Yeah, actually they weren't even mapping the trails. So they do bird walks, they do geological walks and so forth. And then they just do exercise kind of walks. Now there's a Friends walking group. It's been funny because a lot of programs have come out of our program. So now we work with school kids and so forth, and that's one of the things that I think you guys have a great opportunity here is who you can connect with. Okay, so I see you connecting with adults to get exercise and maybe want to get outdoors. I see you connecting with school kids. So potentially, bringing kids out there, coming to, some of the brooks that you have and seeing an egg mass, in spring. That's the young frogs that are developing and so forth. I was a big brother, and I enjoyed bringing my little brother out to the trails because there's so much in nature. It's like an extension of your science program. you know. Plus, I think the more people get out there and experience this, the more connected they are. So when your community is trying to raise money to do trails, you've got voices that will step up and say, yeah, I was out in the trail. So one of the things that I thought, I mean, I looked at your map was very impressive. I think each one probably has something special about it, whether it's along a water or maybe it's got some history or something like that. So one of the things that I think would be great is for each of these locations for you to know what's great about them. I know you've gone through, you've done some work to identify, you know, what's on the trails and so forth. But I think each one could have something special about it. And I think that way, that will get people to go to each one individually, as opposed to just taking the local one and just walking that.
And when you say adopt a trail program, is that mainly corporate or is that individuals?
Well, it could be both. So we have situations where, like the folks from Dunkin' Donuts are in Canton, so they'll come. So sometimes we'll do work events up to 50 and 60 people. The issue there is a lot of times we don't get repeat people coming back when we get them from those events. We find that we get folks from, like the Appalachian Mountain Club will come out. We've been around long enough now that our name is out there, that people know about us. And now we have literally so many people coming, we can't necessarily always service everyone that we get. So I'm actually at a point where I'm trying to not necessarily expand the program and just do a little bit more maintenance on the work that's out there.
Do you have actually designated times you do this, times of the season, or is it just every weekend you do?
No, so, one of the things that we came up with, I don't have it with me now, is a business card for the program. And if you flip the card over, it has our work dates on the back. So it's a very, very good tool. I mean, you can get those incredibly cheap. Okay, what we try to do is we try to keep the same weekends each year. So, for example, like when it comes to October, we stay away from Columbus Day weekend. So we'll do usually the one before that. Same thing with 4th of July or whatever. June, you'll always have National Trails Day as the first weekend, so we'll always make sure we do that. In April, the last weekend of the month is Park Serve Day, which is a statewide program that they have at all the parks. So what it means is that we can give out a business card in almost any year. And if it's not the right year, you could still find the weekend and know what to do. The other thing, too, is when I'm out walking on the trails, I can hand those cards out. So one of the other things is my being out there, I'm an ambassador for the organization. So I can tell people about the organization. Maybe they'll donate money. Maybe they'll become a member. Maybe they'll come out in a work event. But I couldn't tell you how many of those cards I've given out. And then I have people show up and they say, yeah, you gave me a card. I saw you out working, you know.
Is there a dues?
No. People can be a member of the organization. It's very reasonable. I think it's like $25 for a single or like $40 for a family. But there's no requirement. Obviously, there's no cost. You get fed, you know, for a half day's work. You learn some good skills.
Good pizza at the end of the day.
Really good pizza, yeah. And see, the thing is now is, you know, you see me here, okay, from coming from there. We have someone that went down to the Southeast Mass chapter of the Appalachian Mountain Club, and now he's their trails chair down there. So one of the things that we try to do is be ambassadors out to other programs. So if there's anything that we can pass on,
Right.
we're there.
Yeah. We've, excuse me, like the Bay Circuit is another one.
Yes.
They run a very similar work event several times a year.
Right.
A couple of us are plugged into the AMC. You know, Marguerite is involved in the Friends of the Harbor Islands.
So am I, as a matter of fact.
Very good.
There you go.
So we're all-
Gail Marsh.
Yeah,
So we're all definitely connected.
Sue Marsh.
Suzanne.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're all connected, and one of the last things I'll ask you when we're all done here is how can we help you all? But the first, I think what started me thinking about this was a couple of weeks ago when you put out the calendar for the full year.
Right.
But you go right from April through, I was just looking it up.
December.
December.
Sure.
Yeah. So what are the kind of things, if you can recommend, like, since we haven't, John is involved in, Vic and Jerry are involved in Earth Day. We're gonna, next month we have an Earth Day
Sure.
program.
Yep.
So one of the things that, under John's guidance, we've identified 2 of our trails, and we're basically gonna have a work, kind of a work event, a work party at those 2 trails on on Earth Day.
Sure, no, that's great.
So what are so we have under the heading of if you build it, they will come. So
Right.
we've got a date, and that this is kind of in conjunction with other groups in town.
Yep.
So in that case, what kind of recommendations do you have? We've got a date, location. Hopefully we'll have good weather. I don't forget who's in charge of weather.
That was me.
That was you.
Vic, are you going to be there that weekend?
Yes, I will.
Yeah,
Weather.
yeah, weather.
That's what I like to hear.
So starting from scratch, what do you think we
Well, I mean,
should do?
certainly you're going to need tools, okay? And I'm sure that we could lend some tools if you don't have something up and running. You want to make sure that your leaders are trained, so it might make sense to try to do something possibly before that. I know you don't have a lot of time. I mean, I'd be more than happy to do a training class for you. I would welcome you all to come out to the Friends of Blue Hills so you can actually see what we do. You get some training and so forth, and you can definitely experience it. Insurance, I don't know if you folks have, I don't know really, I know it's tough to sue a town, but we end up getting a pretty
been done
reasonable.
before.
Oh, yeah. We had to get a policy for Department of Conservation Recreation. They required us to get a policy. We spent like $800 for a general liability policy, nothing fancy, and so
Is it
forth.
because of the tools involved?
No, it's just basically that if we did any
Liability.
work out there, DCR doesn't want to get sued.
Okay.
So they figure usually suits go after the money. And if you've got $1 million policy, that's usually pretty attractive. Trying to sue a community is very difficult. And I believe it's capped at like $25,000 or something, what they can get out of it. So you want to make sure that you've got a safety plan should someone get hurt, with the tool. You want to be prepared to do some training with them and so forth. Luckily, most people have cell phones today, so it's pretty easy to get someone who can call. But at least you want to be prepared for it. You certainly should have first aid kits, so that would definitely be important. If I don't know how many people you plan to have. For me, I always want to make sure that I have more than enough work that people can possibly do because people often finish quicker. And for me, I want to make sure that I make good use of people's time. Last thing I want is people standing around feeling like they're wasting their time. That's like, for me, the worst thing. So I really stress to have plenty of work. Certainly plan for a rainy day. So if it was rainy, what would your fallback plan be? You might want to try to get some kind of food, so maybe someone locally could donate some. Certainly publicity is a big thing, so you want to make sure that you play it up in the local newspapers as much as you can. You're going to have to set a minimum age, so for us, 15 is our minimum age. It's not that you can't do people younger, but you just need to really, really be careful. I mean, we've got some sharp tools, and you can get hurt with like a pick or something like that. So what you might consider is having some work that's more family-oriented. So, maybe set an age, say, of 10, and as long as you have parents come out with them, the parents should be supervising their child and, so forth. Like I say, I think, the press is really, really important. What you're doing, why you're doing it, you really want to think this out.
I think we're gonna get a lot of
So
the small kids and families. That's what they relate Earth Day to, is to coming out and picking up trash and stuff like that.
So the thing too there's no reason you can't bring an educational component into it. So kids are not going to want to work like the whole day or even a half day. Their attention span after about an hour, I think it starts to wane. So you could certainly make some things that are fun. Maybe set some projects up. If you can identify maybe certain plants that are around, things that might be flowering. If you happen to see a bird's nest, if you have water out there, maybe talking about, why it's important to keep the water clean, what things might pollute it.
Bingo cards that have been helpful for people if you want them to identify something.
Scavenger hunts.
So have a scavenger hunt,
Yeah.
and then, they can win a couple prizes.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, John and the Progress Norwood group are actively advertising this. They've been in front of the selectmen, something in the paper.
Yep, paper. We're gonna send a flyer home to all the kids, all the schools, through all the schools. Social media, yep.
And this was, I think, more of just a clean-up, pick-up event, but
Yeah.
you're saying that we should probably it's only a couple of hours.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason you couldn't be clipping some brush, just at least starting to get people used to it.
Yeah.
If you could even just get your leaders used to showing people how to cut a branch and so forth. So, you could certainly, find like a stand of small trees, thank you. Find a stand of small trees, and you can get people set up with a saw to show them how to cut, because it's really, really important that people know what they're doing. When you're cutting, you don't just go up to a branch and cut it. It's really important that you cut it close to the main stem, or you cut it off completely. If you're cutting it off completely, right down flush with the ground. You don't want to leave any stubs out. I see so many times people are brushing branches, and they leave a stub like this, which isn't good for the tree, and it looks ugly. So one of the things you could do is just grab some branches, and people could just sit down and show, how to cut. So just getting that experience is really, really important. And if you do it in like an hour situation, you'll be well prepared when you come to do it for a half day, or something like that.
And when do you offer training?
So training is I do it at each event. So typically what we'll do is we gather in the morning. We usually gather about 8:45. We let everyone kind of mingle a little bit. 9 o'clock we start our talks. We give a little bit of history of our program. We give a history of the organization. We talk about why we're doing it. We're always very supportive of DCR. We're not out there to bash DCR because they're not doing it. Ahead of time, we've identified who the leaders are going to be, and we've identified work for the leaders. So once we do our introductions, we go around and introduce ourselves, but I do that again when I get out on the trail, because it's nice to know the people's name, who you're working with. Once we do our spiel, we talk about things like poison ivy, so it's really, really important. You might even want to have some pictures of poison ivy, or some real poison ivy that you can point out to people. You want to be very conscious of ticks, so you want to make sure that you make a big deal of ticks, make sure everyone's got long pants. You want to make sure that when you send out information, you're telling people what to wear, what to bring, water, gloves, long pants, boots are preferable to sneakers, certainly nothing that's open-toed and so forth, so it's really important, to let people know that. I think that's probably a good...
When is your next event when you do that?
So we have an event in April. It's the last Saturday of the month.
28th.
The 28th. That's my birthday.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's probably why they chose that day, so maybe that won't work. I mean, honestly speaking, so for example, this weekend, I'll be out looking for work. So if anyone has time, Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and you'd like to join me, I'd be more than happy. You can walk with me. I'll show you the work that we do. I'll show you where we need to be doing work.
Where and what time?
So I would probably meet at like Houghton's Pond, and we can do hiking up and down hills, or we could stay relatively flat. So I'll have work that I want to check. I always keep a list of potential work. And then, like I say, I'll go out, I'll assess what work's going to get done, how many people need to do it, what skill level, because putting in a new structure is a lot more complicated than just doing maintenance. Maintenance is pretty straightforward. I mean, literally in 10 minutes, I can tell you all you need to do about trail work. It's not complicated. Mm-hmm. The good thing is, and I always tell people, you can almost not do something wrong. I mean, it's just, literally, any trees, they're going to grow back. Branches grow back. If you didn't dig a structure deep enough, next time you come back, dig it a little bit deeper. So, I mean, there's not a lot that you could do. In 11 years, we've never had an injury, knock on wood, so it's been a very safe kind of thing. Everyone's kind of watching out for each other. But yeah, I'd be more than happy this weekend. And to be honest, probably between now and our next event, I'll be out each weekend. My wife goes off to church on Sundays, and that's my day to be in my church, the woods.
Yeah,
What time on Saturday?
So I'll give you my phone number. So if you want to reach me, my cell phone is 781-774-0870. Again, it's Bob Flagg, 2 G's. And probably what I'd say is, if we wanted to meet at Houghton's Pond at, say, 9 o'clock on Saturday, and you could go out for an hour, you could go out for 2 hours. I'll probably be out for 4 hours, but, and that would give you an opportunity, like I say, to assess work. We could talk a little bit about using tools. We set up a tool shed. So the tool shed with a combination allows all our adopters to access the tools. So you can go out for all the adopters, you can go out whenever you want. So it works really good.
So you have one central tool shed.
Right.
But when you mention these tools, what are the tools you actually have?
That's
there?
So the tools are pretty straight.
Chainsaws?
We do have the ability to run chainsaws. We have someone who is certified and DCR is signed off. So a lot of times he'll take a couple people out, they carry his gear, and he cuts.
Not bad.
So, yeah. So typically, you'll use shovels, which you use at home, a regular spade, an iron rake, which you use at home. We'll have what's called a pickmatics. So it's got a point at one end, and it has a flat head at the other. So when you use that, the point allows you to dig down deep, whereas the wider blade allows you, I like to say, like you're shaving ice. You don't want to loosen any dirt that you don't need to. Loosen dirt, it's much easier to get washed away. So when you have a grade reversal, think of the trail coming down, you've got a water bar or a grade reversal at an angle, you've got a little ditch that's in front of it, and that's where the water gets collected. The water comes down, hits the ditch, gets directed off the trail. So that's basically, it's a very simple structure. Most of the time, the maintenance is raking out dirt and leaves that are in the ditch. You want to make sure you push them out all the way into the woods. You know, when you cut a branch, you want to put the cut end into the woods so you don't see it. I don't like people to know that we've been doing trail work. So when you do raking and so forth, you push the rocks into the woods. You keep your site nice and clean. So when people comes along, they can see something's been done, but it doesn't look dirty, obvious, or anything bad.
Do people bring their own tools?
People can. Some people are very specific to the saws that they like. I should have brought in my pack. So what I have in my pack is a saw like this. I don't know if you guys got a break. If you do break, I'll go out and get my pack in the car. But I've got a saw that has a blade this long, but it will fit nice in my pack. Some people have folding saws, so you have maybe about an 11-inch blade that folds up very nicely in your pack. I also have a pair of short-handled loppers. Okay, so you could do up to probably 1.25 inches. Once you get over that, you need to switch to the saw. The other thing I have is an old military entrenching tool. So mine is Vietnam era, has a nice wooden handle, folds up. So when I go out on the trail, I can do almost any kind of digging, I can do almost any kind of cutting. I mean, I'll cut things up to 8 inches with the saw that I have. And that way your hands are free. I use my boots a lot to kick branches off and to drag leaves out of ditches and so forth. But with that, you're very well self-contained.
What about rake?
So I don't worry so much about a rake when I'm walking by myself, but obviously at a work event, rakes are incredibly handy.
Sure.
Yeah.
But what about wildlife that you disrupt?
So, you from time to time you're going to see worms, especially if it's early in the season. You've got like wet leaves. You'll see some salamanders and so forth. So we try to be as gentle as we can. So certainly if we find something, we'll try to get it back into like some wet leaves. We try to get it back where we can. You will see deer from time to time. I've seen fisher cats out in the Blue Hills, but pretty much you really don't see that much. We try to stay away from wetlands. We're usually not into the wetlands area, so you really wouldn't see so much like frogs and stuff like that. But on occasion you do come across something. You just try to be as sensitive as you
Snakes?
can. Snakes. Blue Hills is one of 3 locations in Massachusetts that has rattlesnakes. 2 years ago was the first time I'd ever seen one out there. I almost stepped on it. It was right around dusk. And I was just coming down, and I almost put my foot on it. And I was able to just realize, didn't have a chance to take pictures, but they are out there. So the snakes.
Mostly in the east end, or are they?
Well, the snakes, you'll see them a lot, like around Buck Hill is where you tend to see a lot. They like southern exposure because that's warmest, and they tend to be in the rocks, so they get in the different layers of rocks. And what you'll see them, especially like in spring, they'll come out and bask a lot of times on the rocks. So
Big, long, black racer type snakes.
you'll see black races, you'll see garter snakes.
Yep.
In one of the wetlands areas, someone saw a cottonmouth. So you will definitely see them out there. And as you would with anything else, it's great, and it makes you feel good that the wildlife is still out there. We have some endangered plants that are out there too, so be aware of that. But again, where we're digging is usually on a traffic area, so you usually don't have that kind of growth there.
We're in your environment at the Blue Hills, it's, you know, kind of self-contained between the DCR and the Friends. In our case, a lot of the properties that we have that we've inventoried, more than half of them are under the stewardship of the Conservation Commission.
Right.
So we're the word advisory in our title is just, that's basically what our claim to fame is so far. Kind of the next step for us would be to create this Adopt a Trail, or like a day of work party event kind of program. We ourselves can't do a lot of the maintenance unless, you know, we're somebody from either the Conservation Commission or the Light Department or one of the kind of the owners, essentially the managers of the property, have given us the green light to go ahead and do that. So similar to what you were describing of the walk before you run.
Yeah, some of it is a confidence thing. So they just have to see what you do and feel confident, you know. And I definitely, and I had read some of the information that was out on your website and so forth. It's really good to talk to the people that own the land, okay, whether it's, you know, town people or private ownership and so forth. Because I think that shows respect. So I think talking to them, a lot of times, though, find out what they want. I mean, I don't know. What does the Concom want for the land it possesses? Does it want it to be like a museum piece that sits there and no one goes near it and it's protected? That's not a bad thing. But to me, I think it's better to let people go out there, but just protect it, you know. And I think people will fight for that kind of land if they use it. If they don't use it, to them it's woods. Oh, why don't we just put a house on there? So I think you need to get people involved. For the owners of the land, you just need to show them that you're sensitive to their needs and so forth. Long term, I don't want it such that DCI has to come out with us at every event, and when we break up into 6 teams, they're not sending out 6 people to go on that. So I don't want you saying to me, well, we've only got 1 DCR staff, so you can do one project. That doesn't work. So what I would say early on is to get these different groups off to the side so you can have a conversation. You know, you shouldn't be a threat to them, especially like the light company, maybe the Concom, they might have you. But what the other thing too is, and I'll go back to what I was talking about earlier, you want to have a broad palette of skill sets among your volunteers. So, one of the things that you might want to do is do an assessment of all the people and what special skills they bring. So maybe someone brings trail maintenance, maybe someone's good at writing a press release, maybe someone's good at writing a grant proposal, maybe someone's good at doing up drawings for a Concom meeting, okay? But one of the things that I would probably try to do with Concom is set some ground rules early on and say, you know, what are your requirements that we need to meet in? And then hopefully you can find a happy medium. You know, for you to have to get like permission every time you work, that could be a challenge.
Right. Yep.
Do you have landscape companies that are friends of yours that, you know, when you have to, you get a big storm and you get a lot of trees down?
So we don't know when that works with the program, but we do have people in landscape that actually work with our executive director on like other projects that they work on. But no, we don't really per se have anyone. I mean, we do have people that do landscaping, but they're just volunteers.
So what happens after a real big storm and you get a whole bunch of trees down?
Well, so basically what we do is we'll send an email out to the leaders, and we'll kind of divide up the reservation. So we've got about 6 regions, 6 sections. So kind of what we can do is we could say, okay, you take this section, you take this section, you take this section. So we've divided it out, and then those people will go out real quick and they'll do an assessment. So they'll note where the trees are down. Well, we got to get those to chainsaw people. DCR also will send someone out with a chainsaw if there's that many of them.
Okay.
And then from there, we've got people that are adopters. So we'll say to them, hey, make sure you get out this weekend. We had a real bad windstorm. Last year, if you remember, we got a lot of wind. And one of the groups that uses the Blue Hills is a group called Colonial Runners. So they have a trail event that they go out there. So we work with them. They have people going out and looking at the trails. We also go out and look at the trails. So what we're trying to do is make sure that their route is done first. So that helps them out. They turn around and they collect proceeds from doing the race. They give half the proceeds to the Friends of Blue Hills. So we probably get a check of about $1,000 every year from their event. We probably spend somewhere around $3,000 a year running the program.
You made mention of an executive director. Who's the executive director of Of what, the Friends?
Friends of Blue Hills, so Judy Jacobs.
Okay.
So she's been the Friends executive director now for, I don't know, probably 20 years. So it's a paid position. Not quite full-time, but pretty close. But see, one of the benefits for us is that we have so many organizations that want to give us money. Blue Hills Bank came to us and, they were new with the name. They wanted to identify with us. So they gave us like $5,000 a year for 3 years. REI is another one. They've given us a lot of money. I mean, we've had years they've given us $15,000. Easter Mountain Sports. So all the outdoor stores would probably like to be affiliated with you. A lot of times they'll give you coupons, which is good. You can distribute to people. So it's a good relationship,
Do you have to name trails after them?
We don't name trails after anyone.
Oh, good.
And that's, no,
That's the Bible.
And the thing is, too, is because it's a state reservation, we wouldn't have that kind of control over it.
There's no Bob Flagg Trail in there yet?
No, and, maybe when I pass away, but I'm not rushing that.
But Judy, you mentioned Judy, she's...
Yeah, so
times
Judy-
I've been there, she's been at the work event Fridays.
Yeah, so Judy a lot of times will be there to take pictures. She a lot of times will meet with DCR, so if we have issues, she's a good person to meet with them. And then, of course, she communicates with the members, and she'll work with the board and so forth. So, it's such that July and August are very hot months, and we've had days where it's been 95 degrees and we've had events. 2 years ago, I said, I think we're going to maybe discontinue doing August and September events. The board said, no, this program is too important to the organization. We will find someone to lead those events. Well, what they did was they found 2 board members, and I happened to be around, so I ran it with them. So, But I mean, that, in my opinion, and I'm, maybe a little bit jaded, but that program has been the best thing for that organization. It gives us, a seat at the table with DCR. It does the work that really has to get done. It puts a great face on our organization to everyone, because we're always seeing people out there hiking. They ask, what do we do, and so forth. I was actually on NPR one day. I was able to call in and talk about volunteerism. So,
Great.
yeah.
What can we do to help you?
So, to be honest, I enjoy teaching people how to do trail work, because I like to think that you're then going to go off somewhere else and do trail work there in addition to work with us. So we'd love to have you come out. Like I say, we have so many people coming out right now that I'm not necessarily looking to get more volunteers to come out. We'd love to have volunteers come out. But, if any of you plan to lead, I think it'd be really great for you to come out to see how we run the event, what we say, how we do the training. I would definitely encourage you to have a training day, have some work projects there, but have a little bit of a classroom training. One of the things that I did want to talk to you is the federal government has a lot of good handouts, and these are free. Okay, now this one was in 2007. They no longer even have this in print. But what I do have is I've got links where you can get this electronically. So you could distribute this to everyone. So when we break, I can give you some materials I brought with you. I would definitely encourage you to reach out to New England Mountain Bike. They do a lot of work with bridges, like small footbridges and so forth. We could do some of them, but they have a lot better skills. Also, if you allow mountain biking on any of these trails and so forth, it's a good way to reach out to them a little bit, because they have a lot of great skills. The class that they taught, I thought, was fantastic. So I would definitely encourage that. I mean, at this stage of the game, you want to just gather as much information and share it. So I would encourage you, to have a good distribution list, and you can attach some of the information I've given you. Some of it could just be links. Some of it could actually be the document. But there is so much information out there, free.
Great. Any further questions?
Thank you.
How about new trails? Do you guys make new trails?
So there are so many trails in the Blue Hills that they really don't encourage adding trails. We did work with New England Mountain Bike, and they actually laid out a new trail, and they brought a lot of people out to work on it, and some of our people worked on it. So there are a couple new trails in the Blue Hills. Both of those trails are geared towards mountain bikes. Because what happened was there was some real rutted trails that they were using. And this way, what you have with a lot of the older trails is the trail tends to follow what's called the fall line, meaning the top of the peak down to the bottom, it's a straight line. Ideally, what you want to do is follow the contour of the hill as you go up. It's a better grade. It's a lot better to get water off the trail because it's very easy to direct the water off the trail. If it goes straight down, if you don't have good maintenance on that trail, it gets very eroded very quickly. So with a new trail, you'd want to just be sensitive. I think most of what you guys have is going to be pretty flat. So I think you're probably going to be more in an issue with wetlands and wet areas, and then how do you deal with that?
Right.
Okay, so that would be where you do like a punch-in bridge, you know, something very easy. That gets you off the ground, which is good for the ground. It gets people out of the wet areas, because what happens, anytime you get a wet area on a trail, you see it widening.
Widen.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
because people
they
want to
go around
walk
it.
around it.
Yeah.
You got to train people to walk through the mud, that's okay, or avoid it if it's mud season. But you don't want people doing that, so that's when you have a bridge, maybe some stepping stones, or you harden the trail one way or the other. You can armor it, you know, if need be.
What do you do about signage and keeping, trail markers in place? I know a lot of the AMC trails and things like that, they have designated types of markers, like somebody paints a blue dot here and a yellow dot there and stuff like that. Who's handling that? Is it you? Is it DCR? Is it something else?
So we were very fortunate because there's an orienteering group that many, many years ago laid out markers. So if you look at the Blue Hills and you come to a lot of the intersections, you'll see a trail marker, a 4-digit trail marker, which is great if you have a map. If you don't have a map, it really isn't that helpful. You know, so that's something that for us, you can actually get the map online. So if I see people trying to figure out, I'll always say you can get your map online. The other thing is I make copies of the map. So when I go out, I've usually got a few copies. So a lot of times I'm passing out copies that way. So.
Who keeps up the trail markers?
So DCR will handle those. For the most part, people are very good. I mean, they're up high enough that unless you really want to get at them, you're really not going to be able to get at
I
them.
remember they were mostly just dots on the trees.
So you have the Skyline Trail, which is the primary trail that runs over the peaks. Because that's think of it as a bar, it's an end-to-end trail. Then we have dots, which are loop trails. So we've got, yellow, red, and green, and those will allow you to, come around to a loop. So it's almost impossible to get lost. Not completely, but
Oh, it's possible.
it is still possible, yeah.
You can get turned around.
So most of your markers are on a tree then?
Yeah, they're all on trees.
Not on
Yeah.
posts? And
Post, what you'll see in the Blue Hills is they have granite posts at a lot of the trails, and that will have the name of the trail on it. But other than that, we don't really put too many other markers. The painted markers you'll see, we try to even avoid putting them on stone. Some areas you're going over like outcropping, so there's not much you can do, but we try to put them right on trees.
Well, if it's snowing, a mark on the ground doesn't do you much good.
So
Right.
if you've got enough information, I'll kind of look at my notes and see if there's anything more. I can certainly sit for a bit.
Yeah, sure.
And I can certainly run out to my car and get my pack, just so
Yeah,
you can
I'd like
kind of
to see
see
that.
That'd be
what I've
fantastic.
got.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll let you
Thank
continue with other business.
Okay.
And then when I come back, I can
Great.
talk a little bit more.
Thank you.
Very good,
Sure.
thank you, Bob.
My pleasure.
And moving right along, but in conjunction with Bob's words of wisdom. So I wanted, if you could just pass those out, but Craig, and actually, maybe Craig and Fran, if you could just kind of piggyback and just tell us a little bit about what you've got here. Craig had sent a couple of files, actually, but
Well, there's that
If
one
they-
huge set of files there.
Yeah.
I hope you got.
yep, I did. Yeah, I get, I think, 4 different emails with
Pictures,
25 to 30 different
of
pictures.
that report.
Yeah.
It's the same.
But
So maybe if we could talk, let's talk about your trail Hennessy Trail
we do?
trail report first, but just briefly. But I want to kind of tie it into what Bob was just saying, especially the last page of what you've got. Did you get one of those? You wrote
Not
it.
one of my trail reports, and I didn't bring one, sorry.
Actually, I just circled. Anybody have an extra one there? I think I made 10 or 12 copies of it.
One of these? This
Yeah.
one here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that,
Trails Commission report?
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, I thought you
So anybody that's got one of those, and I apologize if everybody doesn't, but So if you could just briefly talk about what you've got on the last page, and that, again,
Okay,
ties into
well,
what Bob.
It basically is what I couldn't fit on the report itself. And it was divided into really two things. One is just general comments about weather conditions, what I saw along the trails, and that included things like cut trees and where I saw litter at some points, some naturalist things, and then possible action items separated so that they're not buried in the comments. Some suggestions for, or at least observations where some improvements could be made. You want me to go through details or just,
Well, I think
is that sufficient?
just, so you went to Hennessy, it's all about
Yeah,
Hennessy?
What I went to is Hennessy Field,
Yeah.
which is pretty much the geographic center of Norwood.
Yeah, let's
Yeah, notice that, yeah.
And, I was a little disappointed I couldn't go on the trip with you guys up to Westwood there, but I went on my own trip through the woods nearby me and reacquainted myself and saw various things, some of them good, and some of them just I have questions on. So,
So kind of in conjunction with the Earth Day, like as
Yeah.
Bob was saying, do some early, reconnoitering and just going out and do some, field, pre-event field work.
that was kind of another idea, because you
Yeah.
had mentioned that Hennessy was maybe a possible site for Earth Day.
Yeah.
It's a definite.
Yeah, so using that concept, and I don't know if Bob, if you
Well,
take a peek at that second page, but if we were to look at your comments, but
summary.
keeping in mind kind of the small, medium, large, and just say, okay, well, some of these smaller ones and maybe some of the medium list, we might be able to do on an Earth Day event. There's no heavy lifting, there's no tools, there's definitely no chainsaws. But these are the kind of things that if you've got a ready, willing, and able group, especially families, that maybe we could tackle some of those things that you had identified, so.
right. The only concern I had was there may be like a half hour's worth of work, and another comment of his, and I'm kind of like ticking off, once you get rid of the litter, there isn't a whole lot else there at the park. Trails are, and one of them is quite wide, it's also stone dust laid, and I mentioned some other things, but I think DPW has to take care of the ruts, for instance. That's not something I think people can easily do, because you'd have to take out the stone dust, somehow lay the
Right.
bed and re-put the stone dust. It's not, it's not impossible work, but I think DPW would be more comfortable doing it themselves. I didn't see areas of like lots of trash. There's areas of pockets of broken glass and soda cans, and the rest actually is, I don't know if somebody does police it in the neighborhood or what, but it's not in terrible shape.
Yeah, that's great. Ooh, it's a good comment, if people are in Hennessy and most of the other existing trails in town anyway, so you do, I'm sure you've got people that bring a trash bag.
Field.
When we went up to the Willett, I think we had 3 or 4 trash bags going, right, Frank? We
Yeah.
did a pretty good amount of collection too, so.
I have my major comment about dog poop.
Yeah.
Why do people think that they can bag it up and then just leave it on the trail and think
Yeah, that's the
that,
dumbest thing.
Or not
Blue
bag
Hills,
it, period.
unfortunately, has
I'd rather they
rampant
didn't
with that.
bag it if they were just
Yeah.
gonna leave it.
Yeah, you'd be
Right.
actually better off.
I don't know,
Yeah.
what they did in Canton, they bagged it and they put it into the sewer system, and it
Oh,
backed
yeah.
the sewer
Yeah.
system out.
That's another
I remember
thing.
hearing about that.
Did you find any, I hate to say this, drug paraphernalia? Because
No.
when we did Norwood Day, that was one of the things people complained about Hennessy Field.
I
Yeah.
did not.
They found it was
Now,
scary.
of course, we're coming out of winter,
True.
so it's probably early yet, and I hate to think of it that way, but because we had snow in late February through March, it probably wasn't as
Inviting?
inviting, yeah.
Right, right.
But there are places like in that side trailer I mentioned, that's where the broken glass was. So there are secluded areas.
Do you think that's not a good trail to do for Earth Day?
No, I think it's a great trail. I didn't see anything like out of the ordinary. Broken glass is about the worst I saw.
But like you were saying, a half hour, everything's done.
Yeah, as far as for
Then what
Earth
do we
Day,
do
yeah,
for the
I think we
2
might
hour
run
and a
out of
half?
things to
No,
do.
indeed.
But that,
With
but,
more than 4 people, especially.
What about a project of like marking the trails? Like you look at Fran's map here, we could have people maybe marking, like, we could do this red loop, we could do another loop, and we could do this loop, and people could, that would be a nice project for people to do too, if they would have fun with that.
What do you mean marking?
Like, put
Yeah.
the blue dots on the, to mark. how-
either dots or
Especially the red
blazes
trail
or,
something.
yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
the
that's
red trail
really
that
not-
goes, it's kind of a minor one to
Yeah.
have them, if you look at this map, have them mark out, like, so that people don't get lost in the trail.
So put
Something
the
like
red
that.
dots on the trees on the minor trail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
I mean,
blue dots on the trees
Yeah.
and the...
Well, the blue parts,
Pretty well defined.
it's hard to miss.
Yeah, I know.
Because of the stone dust,
Yeah, okay.
Well, I
And
think
you
that-
can see quite far, especially, that's another thing, but, the DPW cleared a lot and opened up the area. So now you can see at least 50 feet
Yeah.
almost around. So,
Right. But
this
that's-
area in particular, you can see quite easily. So, you don't need trail markers. And the other way, once you find it, you can't get off the trail really. It's pretty easy to see. The only area is up here that, up by, beyond the boulder there, that might need a trail or a trail marker or two there.
Okay. Jared?
I think the comment about the reputation of the Hennessy Field area was prior to the, once the trails went in, now people utilize it. It's like anything. Anytime you have a lot of people utilizing it, those who do not want to be seen are not going to be going there. So once this became active, so there was less, so the people who are probably talking to you were probably talking about what they heard of or something maybe 15, 20 years ago, because it's pretty,
Well, I think one of the areas is the one that goes in from the side street to the Hennessy Field area itself, where it was pretty overgrown and things
Yeah.
like that, so that's the same thing. Are there markers that indicate that this trail exists?
No.
So that might be
You kind
something,
of, yeah, you could use a trail marker here and one here and maybe one around
yeah,
in this
So we can do
area.
that.
There's a stone wall roughly,
yeah.
I think, about there.
And I think I disagree, Jerry, because when I was there in the spring and fall, there was, broken beer bottles and beer cans, and so they're still in there.
Oh, and,
Yeah, I'm
and
sure
last
they are.
year, somebody, there was a camp not far from the boulder, sort of
Yeah.
an encampment of chairs and
Yeah.
evidence of a fire.
I remember seeing
I
that
think
too.
I know when that happened. But somebody else took upon themselves to move that stuff to the trash can at the north entrance, so.
And almost every trail I've been in Norwood, I've seen in the encampments.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes,
Just like
and
we
that's
did
something
do
with the
that.
neighborhood. I
Yeah.
think we'll build that those who abut or are nearby kind of need to patrol, need to be present, need to be aware,
Right.
and report things.
How many people do you plan to have? I'm just wondering, because it seems like a lot of your sites are scattered sites.
Yeah.
I think you've chose 2. So is the thought that you're going to meet at one of these locations and then divide people to go over
Well,
there? Like what's...
the Indian has
It's
the
the main
capacity to take 1,000 people.
Right.
Because
Oh, okay.
you have multiple, not only of the trails, but you could utilize the people to pick up trash at the ballparks, the tennis courts, the pool area, the playground, the pond, the whole thing. And it actually, and that's what we did for years. And it just sort of died, but
Yeah.
that was, there is enough. So my point is that if we have 50 people, 25 people, we just do trails. If the number gets bigger, then we expand the responsibility, get clean up as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, having it at one location versus trying to split between 2 just makes it logistically a little bit easier.
When we first did Earth Day 25 years ago, maybe even more than that, we tried every school, every site in town. And it actually didn't work out too bad the first year. But then you had, 3 people at one site and 2 people this side. And then we said, wait a minute, let's concentrate. So eventually it worked its way down to the Horse Pool, Indian area. We just kept it, we just did everything right there.
Because what would be nice is if you could, because it's Earth Day, is to bring in some kind of educational component.
Right.
So if you could get maybe like a local school teacher or something like that. I mean, April is a good time. There's going to be a lot of stuff in like Brooks and stuff like that. So that way, if you've got kids, they get some education out of it. They get a little downtime to sit. People get a chance to sit around and mingle a little bit. I mean, obviously you want to accomplish something too. And then just one other thing I wanted to say, one of the things that I might encourage you to do is reach out to the neighbors around here.
Yeah.
Let them know what you're doing. Bring them into part of your process. They might be willing to help do this work, but they might also be willing to maybe adopt it
Right. Going
and keep an
forward.
eye on it. My guess is if they're neighbors, they probably keep an eye on it anyway. And maybe if they see that the town is going to work with them and be supportive, you've got yourself a good relationship there. You've
They
got
have
someone
vested
who can
interest
be
in it
your...
because they helped it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Seen that
Yeah.
happen. Is there a push to have shirts available for the kids, all these kids that are coming?
We did last year because we had a corporate sponsor. This year we don't have a corporate sponsor. I reached out to Waste Management like you suggested, but didn't hear back. So there are no T-shirts scheduled for this year, but it's something
of
we're
yet.
gonna. As of yet,
Okay,
unless you have some idea, but
we'll see what we can do.
So what do you folks do for funding? Like, is the town committing funds, or are you expected to?
We're applying for funds,
The only,
Through the conservation, the
community preservation.
CAPC.
Yeah.
the only funds actually that we've spent to go back to Norwood Day, when we had a booth at Norwood. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's usually 12 to 14,000, depending if Jerry estimates or not.
20,000.
I asked the police,
I'm just
they do it,
kidding. I'm just kidding.
I don't do it.
But we had a booth, we had signage, we had handouts. We probably, all in all, we might have spent a couple $100, all of which was either to small donations or the Conservation Commission paid for some of the signage. So we've been operating on a shoestring so far. I don't know. We're open to suggestion.
Yeah, like I say, I think REI is a good one to approach. Any of the outdoor stores like that are really good to approach.
Yeah, I think the educational, and this is a great discussion to have, obviously, before Earth Day, because it helps us plan. Craig's scout work here to go out onto the site ahead of time. Now we know it really, we should be directing most of the people to the Endine, which I think we already knew anyway, number one. Number two, even if we have, let's say, 25 or 30 of the neighbors especially going to Hennessy, there might only be, the more people, the less time it'll be. So it might be less of a cleanup and more of an education, as you said, of, Craig, you took a couple of pictures of just standing water. They weren't even like vernal pools. They were just kind of
The pond.
Yeah, the pond, yeah, yep. But, that kind of thing, or maybe there's somebody that we could tap to give a little bit of the history to Hennessy, the Hennessy Field. Why is it named the Hennessy? The Hennessy family, I do know it was dedicated to the family, and they had a marine,
There was a bench.
there was a bench,
There's
right?
not
But maybe
now.
that's something else we could do.
Yep.
To Sue's point about the signage, maybe that might be a good idea to do at Endine, because there's absolutely no signage at Endine.
Right.
None.
Oh.
And there's probably 5 trails, that we call trails, they're up on the map there, but, that might be a good thing, that if we could all agree, come up with a universal, signage method, a standard for us to use, then we just go out and we, get the Concom and the rec department and the schools to buy into this, but, not run wild with the paint can, but basically try to provide some guidance. I was up there over the weekend, and if you didn't know where you were going, there is a maze in the back of the trail there. So.
Is there universal signage?
No, and it does really vary a lot. Now, one of the things I was going to say is, the AMC does a lot of wooden signs what a great way to reach out to like a wood shop up at the high school or something like that. Maybe they could take that on as a project to make some of them. Be very conscious of vandalism, because you're definitely going to have probably issues with vandalism. So I'd be aware of that, what kind of signage you put up. The federal government does put out periodicals on every aspect with trails, so they do have some materials on signage, what you might want to consider. Certainly your DPW, I'm sure, has a signage kind of department, so they might be able to maybe do some volunteer work. Maybe they can do some signs. Like I said, I think the schools could definitely do it. I'd be careful with assigning unskilled people to painting. Painting looks incredibly easy. My God, you pick up a brush, you get in the can, and you paint it on a tree. How could that be any tougher?
Yeah.
Well, it can really be. So
I agree with you.
because I'll tell you, we've had issues. We've had issues in the Blue Hills with people being volunteers. There are certain standards.
And everybody wants to paint.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
So you've got height standards that you want to adhere to, size standards, consistency. You want certain distance. It should always be line of sight from one mark to the next. Both sides of the tree, because obviously you go both sides. So there's a lot to it. So painting is probably something I'd be less likely to do. I'd want to make sure that you had a special training with that, and then assign that to people that have done it before, and so you can get some consistency, and then monitor them as they do it.
And then when you do the dots, is there a certain...
So you can do like a template. So a lot of times, you'll have a template.
What's it made out of?
It could be cardboard. I mean, you want something that kind of fits around the tree. So if like 2 or 3 people are going out, someone can hold that, and one person is just painting it. If it's you want to try to be on a smoother tree versus a rough tree. If it's a rough tree, you want to kind of scrape it a little bit.
And don't put
of the
a white
bark.
marker on a white birch tree. Or don't put
But
white markers on places where there
Yeah.
are rocks that have big deposits of quartz on them and things like that. There is a standard that if there's 2 markers, one over the other, it means there's a trail turning.
A trail...
Turning. In
To
other
turn-
words,
yeah,
it's going to go
change in
right or
direction.
left.
Okay.
Some will actually, will go
Yeah, some
this
will
way
actually-
to
or
point.
put an arrow.
And I'm thinking like a little plastic thing, different
Yeah.
colors. That
And
just-
some, and again, when you're nailing something to the tree, you want to make sure you understand a tree grows.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't pound it flush with it.
Yeah.
You want to give it a little bit of distance off the tree.
Another thing that goes with that, the water trail, which runs from Canton Junction in Canton to Diamond Hill in Rhode Island, when they started it, they took tin can tops and they painted them. And over the years, the paint wore off and the marker became the same color as the bark. So you have a really hard time looking for those markers, but it goes for 38 miles. So you get kind of used to it.
Somebody's got to paint them again, that's all.
Yeah.
I did that trail as a Boy Scout, Troop 42, up here at the Congregational Church.
Yep.
And the leader on it was Paul Peswick.
Yeah.
So I know you have Peswick's,
do.
and I drive by that all the time. I go to the Chinese place from Randolph.
Okay. Brian, did you have a comment there?
Yeah, no, I just want to mention, he mentioned Troop 42. I pulled this out of my archive. This is from 2008. And this was done as an Eagle Scout project by Matthew Costa. And he created this brochure. And when you were talking about vandalism, this is a sad story in a way. He went up there with a whole bunch of scouts, and they cleared all these trails. And they put up markers. You can see there's 4 places where they put information. There was a bulletin board up there at one point. I don't know if it's still there. I know that he tried to replenish the brochures for about a year, but vandalism, people just broke the brochure holders, knocked down the signs, and it was just kind of sad. But I can pass this around so you get an idea that at least in 2008, back then Aaron Guile was still wearing a red coat. I noticed that, but you can kind of see
So
that this was something that was done, and he did a really nice job with. That's another resource that you have is. This was Troop 42 actually, and in 2008 he was there. Matter of fact, he even got on the police log because somebody said, "Hey, I see a bunch of vandals heading into Indian Park with saws and."
it used to be Troop 1. It used to be Troop 1, and that got taken from. That's how they became 42.
Oldest troop.
Yeah, it was the original troop from November of 1910.
Something like that,
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah.
And don't overlook the Girl Scouts, because they've got a lot of
Yeah.
trail experience, too.
We do have a lot of people that
Yeah.
have contacted us, and they are ready, willing, and able. We just have to channel them and, come up with a plan ourselves first, and then guide them on where to turn.
We used to
You might make
introduce,
a copy of
before
that.
they changed the scout requirements for Cub Scouts, that your Tiger Cubs, which is your first graders, used to have one of their requirements was to take a hike and answer certain questions about it. And we would go from the Haas pool on that trail that goes along next to the pond and then walks along behind, and we'd end up down on the end and come up by the ball fields and so forth. And that was something we did every fall, and the kids, we'd end up in the playground there behind the Haas pool and do something at the picnic table, and it was a wonderful way to introduce the kids
Yeah.
to, the trails in the area. And part of my reason for wanting to kind of get involved with this committee is thinking that, I don't know how much the young people are even aware of this, much less families, of what is available and the wonderful things. If it hadn't been for I wasn't even sure the Germany book, or if I hadn't been part of another Eagle Scout project to spread
Right.
the gravel up there, I wouldn't have known that path was even there.
So 2 more things that I'll say. One is there's a group, Neponset River Watershed Association. Ian Cook is the executive director there. I would definitely suggest you guys reach out to him, because again, he would come down and he would give a talk on the wetlands. He would work with you because there's, Purgatory Brook and a lot of wetland areas that you have. So I think he would be a very good partner. He would love to see areas around that taken care of. He could certainly mention my name. He knows who I am. Sure. The other thing that I would say is everyone's got a cell phone today. So you guys should really, really, really have a digital presence. You should have a website out there.
Yep.
You can have maps on all these things. You can have like an informational handout on each one, anything of significance. The good thing to that is you don't have to worry as much about vandalism with a lot of signage. If people can go out there and there's a sign that says you can get to electronic information at this website, and then boom, they're out there. You can put so much information, you could track who the visitors are. Those could be people that you communicate with in the future to get volunteers out there. So again, a good electronic presence like that, a good website would be very helpful. Once you start getting volunteers, you're going to want to collect all that information in one place. So I would welcome that you go out on our website, look at the information we've got out there, and I could certainly get someone who could talk with you and pass that kind of architecture on to someone who is similarly skilled. It wouldn't be good to pass it on to me because I don't know anything about computers.
Yeah.
Okay, great, good. Let's spend, we have to be kind of cognizant of time here, but
Did we want to see Bob's pack, say Brian first?
Oh, yeah, can you show that?
So I got my pack, all right, so.
okay, we do need
Whoa, that's a
to,
big
don't get too excited. They are tools.
All right, so I'm
Don't
gonna,
try this at home.
I'll
but
make
we
it-
can't spend too much time on it.
I'll make it incredibly quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, this is the saw.
Okay.
Nice and easy, comes right off. This thing cuts, okay,
Yeah.
cuts very well.
Print
This will
it
go through something 8 inches very easily. So I've always got that. Here's my loppers. So again, you just want to keep these sharp, you want to stay out of the dirt. But again, it's a nice short handle, so it easily fits inside my pack. It's great. This is my favorite tool. This is Vietnam era
Shit shovel.
entrenching tool.
Wow.
Could be a weapon if
That
need
wasn't
be,
during
and I'm sure during
didn't say
the
it.
wars, these were weapons. But what's really nice about this is you got yourself a pick.
Oh,
Yeah,
You got
this
yourself here. So a lot of times when I come up and do my trail work, I'm just scooping all this up, digging down nice and deep. But this allows me to do most any work that you're gonna have out there.
Where'd you
So,
get that?
this you'd probably have to pick it up on the web.
Okay.
This is 1967. So you want to get something that's older because this will take a beating. So it's a nice solid wood handle, but it's really well made.
I go like that, it's brand new, never been used.
Oh, yeah.
Now's your chance.
But the thing is, like I say, I go out there on the trail and I'm fully contained. The other thing too is make sure you bring plenty of trash bags. I've always got trash bags because those are very
Yeah.
handy.
Water, first aid kit.
Water, first aid kit, yeah. I've always got my cell phone, so a lot of times I want to take pictures. The other thing that I brought in was just, I'll show you very quickly, it was a map. So this is the map that we have of the Blue Hills. I'll just show you this super quickly, but that's it. But that is, this is the Blue Hills here. So this is all 7,000 acres. And like I say, you can see 125 miles of trails. And then on the back, it's got a lot of history, a lot of good
Do
information.
you have that on your website too? So people-
You can actually get this electronically, so if you go on our website, you can pull it up.
So if they're out hiking, they can just take out their phone and get it.
But the thing is I'll tell you, in the Blue Hills, you don't always have good cell phone reception. So usually what I'll do is, I've got an electronic copy of this, I'll pull it up, I can blow it up to really focus on the area I'm at, and then I can just print a couple copies.
But you got that one from the Trailside Museum or the State Police? Or what?
You can get it from either one. They use it as a fundraiser. So in Blue Hills, the Blue Hills headquarters, they sell it. If you go to the Trailside Museum, they'll also sell it. But it's like $3, but it's definitely a very good tool.
Great. They also, I have one.
Okay, there you go.
I went out to the Phil's
Middlesex Phil's?
reservation,
Yeah.
on Saturday. They actually have a kiosk right at the trailhead with a map to be able to pick up the QR code.
Yeah, QR code, you take a picture of it.
Yeah.
It's those funky squares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So through the QR code, I was able to download the map of the Phil's as well.
And maybe that
So
might
I
be
now
something
have-
that you guys could
Yep.
use as a way for people to take that picture, and it would link them to get additional information on that trail or on your whole program.
I've got a QR code maker on my phone, and it's a
Perfect.
free app that you can download, so.
Okay, Marguerite's in charge then. Okay. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. That was great.
That's all right.
Well, like I say, I'm more than happy to I can attend some meetings. I'm more than happy to go out and walk this, and I'll give you my 2 cents just to see if there's anything more you can do.
We'll
But,
take all contributions.
would be
2 cents or more.
I'd be more than happy to come in and do a training for your program. We would welcome you guys to come out and join us, have some
Excellent.
pizza.
Saturday at 9?
Saturday.
Pizza at 9?
Well, it'll be a breakfast pizza.
It's got
Leftovers.
granola on it.
We do try as a committee, but we advertise it through the Norwood Community Media, and we do try to take a walk at least once a month ourselves, just to get acclimated and familiar with the territory. But as the weather improves and the pace picks up, we'll definitely be going out at least once or twice a month. So
But reach out, reach out to your schools, reach out to your Boy Scouts and your Girl Scouts and that. I mean, there's so many different groups out there
Right.
that are looking for something to do.
yeah, sure. Boy, have we got something for them to do.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Very helpful.
Feel free to stay. We're gonna
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
rocking and
sure.
rolling here. We got the map of the Undine here. Fran and Craig, do you want to talk about your amazing map subcommittee? And Sue?
Well,
Well,
Fran did most of the actual work, so.
Well, that was the first cut at Ending. What we're trying to do, I guess, was take the GIS maps and overlay what we had from past maps.
Mhm.
We had a lot of data. I don't think, it doesn't capture all the trails at
Not
Ending.
that one, no.
This was basically our first cut at Ending though, and maybe offline, we'll take your suggestions on how do we deal with the intersections, the loops, all the other trails, and other suggestions on the map. Craig had suggested emulating the native maps, which we thought were simple, a style. So that's what I guess we're trying to do.
More contours, more like showing of wetlands and other features rather than just an ortho picture. I think from a trail-wise, you want to really understand what's at the head level, not necessarily from the overhead level.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, like Bob's suggestion is trying to get more features maybe that of interest. Like you said, Craig, like put the boulders in there or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe something else, some other feature that's interesting on there.
Something
Is the
you
ash
could
tree
orient.
still there?
I don't know.
I don't
didn't
see it on the map.
It was. Tree,
The skeleton,
unfortunately,
the
is
skeleton's
dead.
still there.
The ash tree is dead?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
The big tree, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
big tree, there are no leaves on it, so.
Right. It's dead.
you know, Unfortunately,
Dead, Jim.
It's
it's
March.
probably gonna have to be cut down in a year or two.
Yeah.
When I would get lost, I'd know that there were like at least 3 different ways I could get out from there.
So I think, I don't know, envision maybe like just flip side to the map would have more the interest, the history, the pictures, the
Yeah.
wildlife, that kind of stuff. But that's,
Yeah.
we'll get to that later. I think right now we're trying to deal with what's the best way to get a map out there.
The challenge of Endine is that there are so many small trails crisscrossing. This kind of simplified design was an attempt to provide some like distances without going too much, because every little segment, it would have crowded out. This, I think, is actually too simple because there are lots of trails in here, and somebody trying to follow like this trail will come across a trail, an intersection maybe over here, and then go, do I go up? Do I go down?
Right.
So
Right.
to me, it's an ongoing question how we handle
And
it.
there's another trail right by the river there too, running parallel by the pond.
I think it's- that's-
And actually, I think that's one of your more attractive ones.
Yeah.
You know, because again, you've got, you
You're
can
right next to
hear,
the water.
you can hear the water.
The Cub Scouts love that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're probably showing where the bridge is, that archway near the tracks where it
Yeah.
takes the elbow.
Yeah.
Right at the
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
top. Yeah.
This area.
Yeah.
What I didn't know, and we might want to take another crack at this, but across the Neponset, that's also town-owned land. See where the marsh is at the,
Yeah.
kind of the V at the top?
Oh, you mean the pause?
You mean the
Right
obvious?
here?
I'm sorry, I said-
Yeah, this area here is open. Now, I've seen it marked as property of the residents of Allendale, so I don't know if that's a common open space or you know,
Wasn't there a
something
couple trailers
mislabeled.
on there too, and by the property?
What has happened is the water, when the water comes down heavily, it goes right in there.
Yeah.
And it's, so that's not your real brook anymore. It actually goes right into there, and goes back out.
Yeah, it's a
That's the original
it's a buffer
brook.
zone.
Yeah, yeah.
And like in the Blue Hills, do you have trails that can only be walked in the dry period?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we don't have trails that would go across like a vernal pool. We would never do something
Right.
like that. But there are definitely some that, you know, expands a bit. you know.
Like that area up
Yeah,
there?
It's a
absolutely.
Quaking Bog, too.
The bog
Yeah,
bridge.
yeah. I mean, what I would suggest, and we have a variety of trails in there, what they call personal trails. We have some trails there, and we'll brush the trails back. So if people have created something that's not really a trail, you gotta brush it in. And sometimes people start taking the branches out, you gotta keep brushing it in. So
Brush it in,
that's how you
meaning putting-
limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just take stuff that's down and just cross it like this, so people stop going that way. So you kind of force people to go the way you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I think something like this, probably just saying, you know, this way to go there, this way to go there, and that's it. Mileage, I probably wouldn't put.
Square footage, maybe, instead of miles.
Yeah.
The other thing that this property is used as, and I think less so now, but cross-country running. So what we tried, do they still run up there?
It's
Oh, yeah,
still
that's
a
their
road.
cross-country course.
Yeah.
That's Eagle Scout that wanted
Yeah,
to
there's
do
another.
some of the trail marking for us was
Yeah.
Right.
cross-country
Not
guy.
quite sure. I had tried to get in touch with Noah Kearns,
Noah,
was his
yeah.
name. But just to try to, it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So, we if we were going to map it and mark it, we would have to be cognizant of that alternate use and try to piggyback on one on the other. So,
I was actually thinking online, we could provide several maps. There would be the cross-country map, maybe, that would show the trails overlaid onto the existing trails.
Yep.
And then there's maybe another one that was similar, or taking off of Sue's original map, where we went the easy route, the
Yeah.
intermediate
Right.
route.
Yeah.
Are these topographic lines here?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I was contacted in the fall, and we said we'd circle back in the spring. But we did have a couple of people with mobility issues.
Yep.
So what we had tentatively identified was the area around Hawes, to create something that would be user-friendly from a mobility
Right.
standpoint.
Yep.
And that could be, if you look at all the trails across the town, maybe Shattuck might be another one. That's a good, it's a level surface, and it's
Pretty level, although.
the material that the the trail material is not all that
Still
user
No, there's
friendly.
a lot of roots.
Parking.
Yeah.
that I would say
Parking.
if they go into that, they'd have to grade the trail and make it smoother grade and not have tree roots or
Right.
work around them.
Yep.
Hennessy might qualify
Yep.
for that too, for,
Except for the cliff going down towards Murphy.
Yeah.
You've got that.
That's no.
Yeah, that's Noah's Kern's map.
Now, what
For the-
about someone like
cross-country.
Charles River Running? If they, looked at Endine and they're looking for, she was expressing interest in running off street. And if they could plot a course for them too down the Endine.
They've,
Right there.
they've actually run, like Percival Brewing, a year and a half ago or so. They hosted a trail running, I don't know if it was like a 3-4K or 5.
That was a
I think-
5K.
Was it 5?
But you started at Percival and you ran across the street, and then
Right.
you did the once around loop, which is 1.5 miles, and then worked your way back. So.
Yeah. So there's definitely usage, multiple uses. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Craig, to your point of having multiple maps, depending on what you have in mind, we could certainly go that route. We did to the point of consistency across all the maps, across the whole
And
town.
there's the other one.
Try to have the same message, like a town-wide message, and then beyond that, get specific with the property on the back page.
So this one kind of shows different
That's,
routes.
yeah,
Yep.
And based on the color, it showed the miles and what kind of it was about.
I like that map, actually.
yeah, it shows right.
Yeah, so if we took that map, and I was thinking of that too, but if you kind of blended what you've done, Fran and Craig, if you
Overlay
blend,
that one on that one, yeah.
right? So, and even on this one at the bottom, we've got a legend with distances,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So we could also incorporate something like that,
You can do a map that has layers, and the person can select which layer
right?
they want, and you don't have to redo the base map 6 times and keep it up to date. 'Cause the problem with keeping it up to date is always with you.
Yep.
Right, yep. So maybe as a suggestion, and this is definitely good, good feedback to the subcommittee, but you've done a great job so far with
Yeah,
the,
these things are
we've
great.
actually, while we're here, let's take a spin through with the 4 of the maps that you've done. But maybe between now and our next meeting, if we can all take a look at these, and, you can either mark up, I've passed them out, but I think we also emailed them out, and if I didn't, I will. But if you can make some comments on these, what's here, what's not here, maybe some suggestions for the back page.
Yeah, put these features too that you want to see in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And they don't have to, they can be location specific, but then if you take a step back, like as Bob said about trail intersections and things, generally what kind of resource do we want to provide for people? And, again, that consistency thing of how can we use that same concept across all of the properties? And you don't offend the people at Shattuck because it really only relates to Hennessy or like whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
We have blank copies of this
Yeah.
trail report.
We do have
Yeah.
links,
Okay,
yes.
they're on the website? They're on the...
We'll send them to you.
All right,
Yeah,
So do you have a website specifically for the trails?
not yet.
we're working on that.
Okay,
We
yeah, 'cause I was
have-
gonna
that
say,
has been
I didn't see it, but yeah.
That's been my answer for quite a while, but.
Under construction.
Yeah, ground under repair.
Do you have someone who's a webmaster, or is it?
Because of because of where we sit, and because we're happen to be, the town advisory, we would typically, if we want to use the website, we would use the town website. We've talked about having our own. We actually started our own Facebook page, but then we kind of scuttled that temporarily. But that would also be a good resource for us to use. I think we said the combination, and then the kind of the third prong of this would be a newsletter, which we've already sent out a couple of newsletters, and we're hoping to send one out in the next 2 weeks again. We've got about 250, 275 people who have given us their email addresses
That's good. Yeah.
as a distribution, so.
Do you guys use a trail condition report?
Our database tracks all that, so we'll do an assessment of the trail, so that gives us like our starting point, and then we track all the work that gets done and so forth, so.
So it's an ongoing report then, basically?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Because see, the other thing too is sometimes we have people that go out and do trail work and maybe they don't cut things properly or they don't handle something properly. We could see who did the work, and then that gives us our ability to follow up with them. So that's very helpful too, you know, to be able to catch issues that we see.
So,
They're online.
yeah,
Yeah.
is it a spreadsheet that you work with? Is it an Access database, or is it?
So it's an Access database, which is good because I work with Excel, so I'm very comfortable as an accountant with Excel, so I can download stuff from that and I can sort and so forth. So I can look to see where people have done work, where they haven't done work, and what's good is everyone's got access to this. So there's the Friends Blue Hills, that's our work report right there. So you fill this report in electronically, and boom, it gets right into the
Yeah.
database.
So this is
This
already
is-
directly editing the database.
Absolutely, yep.
Wow.
As
So you
soon-
don't
as
have to
soon-
re-enter it?
No,
It's just-
and see, the way it used to be done is we'd send in the report, and then they'd have to bring it in and this and that. Now this does it all electronically, so it's great. I mean, you know, I'm certainly willing to come back another time and give you like an overview of our website and so forth, so as you're thinking of what you want to put on yours. But I would encourage you to go on this. There's about 4 pages. It starts where it says volunteer, and then you click in there and you can get into all the different locations that we have. But it's great. I mean, this is a great tool. I would encourage you to spend the time on that because that's going to be a big communication tool. It's a good way to collect all your information.
Right, okay.
Is there a mapping component? Do you interface with?
I don't do that, but there's another guy that can work maps and so forth, yeah. So when you pull up,
And is that tied to the database?
yes.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Oh, I mean, it's pretty elaborate. I mean, it does a lot. It's really, really great. The guy that does this has done a fantastic job with it.
Oh, you can pick hiking or biking.
Yep.
All right, so, let's see, I guess moving right along. So we've got 4 maps, so the subcommittee has given us homework of looking at these 4 maps and coming back with some feedback. You've done 4 properties in town, you're gonna stop and wait for feedback? Or are you continuing on?
Yeah, I guess it's under your direction, but I guess my suggestion would be to look at these and see it for consistency's sake, does this make sense? Because we're trying to build not just a map for each park, we're trying to kind of build a style for
Yeah.
Norwood Trails.
Right.
And,
Okay.
you know, we still got to build the content behind this too,
Right.
which we can use the past maps for some guidance, but we, you know, for instance, directions to the place. We might want to have a short paragraph on where to park or,
Right.
you know, some special notes about access. Probably, I guess one question I had is whether we wanted a table that listed other parks or just leave that to the online portion.
Yeah. Good.
You know, and leave, and on the brochure, just say, for more information or for more parks, go to this website, which we'll have eventually.
Yeah, okay.
On, what are you looking at, where are you looking to put this? That information?
Well,
I just think if you had a printed piece of information and you had the listing of other parks that have not been completely mapped yet,
Right.
but yeah, it would perk interest, because especially if the person lived in that area. First, the first of them had to go look it up.
yeah.
You know, I think if you had that listing, it might not be completed, but at least it would open their, make them say, oh, yeah, yeah. this-
And then as we
They might
add
raise their
parks,
hands.
we're gonna be adding, I know this is gonna be a work in progress for probably the next year.
Right.
But one worry I had was, well, we start with 4, and then we add another, and now we have to update all these other ones and throw away the
Right.
previous maps that had
Oh, no,
3
no,
of them on there.
No, that's not my point is, I think what we're doing is, let's not bite off more than we can chew. Let's take care of what we've got right so far, which is great. But instead of saying, go look on the website, just list the other potential trails, and it just might perk some interest to be involved with this part so we can move forward.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
What
yeah.
software did you use to do this?
Talk to Fran.
What software did you use, Fran?
It's
Well, that's
Photoshop,
another
I
thing,
believe.
because it's a little bit kludgy. So, we just.
What is it?
we took a little,
NASA.
we used the Mass GIS Unimapper, took a screenshot of that, and then we took our GPS walks and overlaid them on top of this using Photoshop and Microsoft Word. So
Okay, then.
it's too much
I hear you.
manipulation.
Yeah.
It should be a better way to just
Yeah.
put it on one piece of software. So we're just trying to get the maps, get the style. Then we have to work out how to do this better.
Keep it
With less
simple.
Keep it simple.
Do we have a map, like a one-page handout that has like little green dots all over Norwood where the parks are?
Yeah,
Yeah, there is a map in the recreation master plan, yeah. Has all on it, everything.
You have that page, Bob, under your.
I was just
under that
thinking if
first
you wanted
map
something
there.
that
Yes.
That one.
show
Yeah.
people, here's where the trails are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So do you have any kind of handout to get volunteers? Because what would be nice is to have like on a one-page document the skill sets you're looking for. So having someone who's like a webmaster, having someone who can work with maps, having someone who's database, because you might find that someone sees that and says, yeah, I'm a database specialist, what do you need? So, I mean, I would definitely get the information on your website and have a good handout. Here's the skills we're looking for. You know,
Okay.
someone who writes grants, someone who can do Concom drawings and understands wetland issues.
Right, right.
You know, because the other thing too is I think reaching out to like the high school, getting someone who's the biology teacher, getting someone who's a geologist, because you know you go up to Shattuck Park, there's a lot of rock outcroppings and stuff like that. Wouldn't it be nice for a geologist to be able to talk about that? You know, there's a guy in the Blue Hills, Les Terrell, I think's his name, and he's a geologist, so he gives talks a lot of times out in the Blue Hills. You know, because all these individual skill sets can give you education and you know programmatic stuff.
Sure. Good point. Do we have any other comments about, so we'll get back to you all with some ideas on the maps. Thank you very much for doing that. Do we have any comments or updates on Earth Day? Or do we want to?
Well, I don't know where,
Subcommittee going.
Yeah.
well, the subcommittee, we met, we just said, well, you take this one, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you know, how far, I understand there was a Earth Day meeting that we didn't know anything about, so I actually probably would have been a good idea to be there.
So there's been several meetings like within Progress Norwood, and then also with town department heads in the planning of Earth Day, as far as the involvement with the Trails Advisory Committee. You know, it's cleaning up the Hennessy and also the Undine properties. So a lot of it is just becoming sort of site coordinators, if you will. That's what we're calling them. Someone to be there early to hand out the gloves, hand out the trash bags. We also are going to have cones available in case anyone finds sharps. We didn't find any last year, which was good. But we're going to give out cones just in case we find any sharps.
We thought it said Sharpies, we thought.
I know.
Pens are gonna be all over the thing.
Oh, sorry.
So that was the question we
What
had.
is it, what do you call it?
So basically, we're just gonna be there and you guys are running it.
So there probably isn't going to be anyone from Progress Norwood at your location.
Probably
We're
will
scattered.
not be anybody there?
Will not.
Will not be anyone from Progress Norwood
So will
there.
there be, so there'll be nobody, so we're gonna be running the Earth Day
So you-
aspect.
As
far as
the
the
two
cleanup.
fields cleanup.
Yep. So you'll
Okay.
be like the point person. People will show up. You'll be like the captain.
Well, that's, see,
Type of
that's
thing.
so when I heard that there was meetings all about it, I said, apparently we're just gonna be handing out information about the trails, because it looks like there's already, there's a whole Earth Day committee doing these things, so.
But it's,
So there's two different parts. So there's a cleanup part, and then there's a community picnic and fair part at the town common.
Right.
So we'll need people cleaning up trails, and then also staffing a table. And we may have to have some overlap where people that are actively cleaning may not be able to set up the table, you know, so we might need like a table subcommittee to set up the table, put out the brochure, all that sort of stuff.
Subcommittee.
Lee is that subcommittee.
So
Yeah.
is there, I guess, my questions will be, are there accessibility to tables, tents, and all, stuff like that, that the rec department has availability to have?
Yeah, we're working through that right now. If we need a table for the Trails Committee, we can get one.
So they would be there?
At the Common?
No,
Yeah.
No, at Endine and at Hennessy.
No.
So we have to provide our own table somehow.
There's no plan to have tables at the sites that we're cleaning up. It's just kind of people show up with trash bags and clean.
So basically, we own those two sites. So people will come to those two sites at what time in the morning?
9:30?
9:30. And in line with the discussion on Craig's report, we basically have to have a plan ready so that if 20 people show up, we need to kind of divide and conquer and have a plan ready that says, okay, here's a family with small kids, so they're going to go do the light, option A, let's send them over to do some really light work. Basically just cover a small area for trash pickup. And then if there's a couple of high school kids, we'll send them into the deep dark jungle, and they'll be doing the not heavy lifting, but the kind of the heavier aspect of that. But what we need to do as a Trails Committee, we basically own those two sites. So we're going to have, just as Craig has done here, we're going to have to go out and use our imagination and say, if we had 20 people, what would we have those 20 people do? So we own it. There's no
Support.
There's very little support, right?
Not
There's
even
no
a table.
It's more just people are going to show up, and we're just going to have to, manage those people.
So
accordingly.
what's the town doing? You met with the town, so they're not providing anything?
So the DPW is providing trash bags, and they're also going to pick up the trash bags afterwards.
Is there a dumpster gonna be there?
At the
Endine?
Nope.
I just know if you're promoting it the way you're promoting it right now, as I
Yeah.
see it, you're gonna get a crowd.
Oh yeah, we had 200 people last year.
Well, try maybe by 10.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, so, and what they did is they brought back everything from tires to pieces
Yeah.
of, and we had a dumpster there. We actually had two dumpsters, one for recycled stuff, one for just trash. So I'll go talk to Mark Ryan and see if we can get, at least, and see if we'll talk to Waste Management about getting a dumpster there anyways.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, last year we just piled up the bags, and the DPW picked them all up on Monday morning across all 12 sites, like
Yeah.
all the elementary schools, and and so
Well, I guess I
forth.
heard good things about it last year, and they have a tendency to grow when things.
Yeah, we're doubling the amount of organizations that are going to have tables at the town common. So we had 10 organizations last year. Now we have 20. We have over 20 this year. Yeah, we have two musicians playing at the gazebo. It's going to be pretty
20 organizations, could you explain what they are?
Yeah, so there's going to be multiple different organizations at the town common set up from 11:30 to 1:30.
Oh, so they have nothing to do with the
Trails, no.
Okay,
Correct,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so they'll have a table next to ours.
Okay,
right?
okay,
So-
I see, yeah, right.
But each one of the schools, there's a cleanup organized at each one of the schools.
Yep, so what you can do is you can go to progressnorwood.org and sign up there for any one of the sites around town. Earth Day is Sunday, April 28th. It starts actually at 8 o'clock at the town common. Free yoga, 9:30 to 11 site cleanups around 12 or 13 different locations. And then everyone to the town common, 11:30 to 1:30. 20 different organizations that you can go and visit and learn about different sustainability activities that groups are doing around town. And there's also be live music and activities for the kids.
So there'd be more cleanup places than just the two fields then, did you just say?
These schools do it.
Oh yeah, each
Schools.
elementary school, Bond Street, top.
Oh, so you're still doing that?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
this is so the subcommittee is more or less just to own. So like 6 people are gonna show up at Hennessy, 20 people are gonna show up at
Yeah.
Indine, and it's just you guys as like captains to be like, okay, here's all your gloves. Here's one bag. We have a bag for
Now, are
trash.
these overlapping things? Like, do I have to choose between cleanup and yoga?
No, there is
Yoga.
there is no overlap. There's no overlap.
You said
So
yoga
Sue,
was like
thank you.
9:30 or something.
Yoga.
I thought you said
Yoga.
Yoga's at 8.
A yoga or
yoga.
yoga?
Yoga. Yoga's at 8. 9:30 for cleanups, and 11:30 town common.
We have a sign up, so are you gonna be able to tell Vic
Yep,
and
so-
Jerry how many people are gonna be?
Oh
at
yeah,
their
so click
sites?
that for me. So there's this thing right there. Then it launches you to a sign up genius. So if you guys could do me a favor, do you have Hennessy or Endine? Who has what?
Hennessy.
I have Endine.
All right. So if you just scroll down, there's a section where it says site coordinator. you would just sign in as the Endine and the Hennessy site coordinators. You go in and you can sign up. You just put in your email address.
It says Coakley, I think.
Oh,
Oh.
Haas Miller Rec
Oh,
Complex.
for gracious.
So
Take
I'm,
that out.
The
so
Haas Miller Rec.
so I'm gonna be there for like the Haas pool cleanup, but there's gonna be a separate
Yeah, I
group
never
doing
just did it.
Endine. Is there an Endine Trails
Never even saw it.
section, or do we need to add one?
No.
And this is off of the Progress Norwood site?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh.
ProgressNorwood.org.
And
So-
Progress Norwood is actually running the whole thing?
Correct.
When is your next meeting? Would
We can meet separately if you want.
No, I would think if we could,
Yeah.
it would make sense to me that we would, we would sit in the back if you wanted us to. But if the meeting is going on and there's things that, that pertain to us,
Yeah.
that we're not hearing it, that morning, that, oh, by the way, you get this, whoa, where did that come from? So, and we can ask questions and maybe we can be of some help. So.
Yeah, sure.
There's no Endine or Hennessy on.
There's no Endine or Hennessy.
Yeah.
We have no tables, we
dry
have
run.
no presents.
I guess so.
Should be easy to organize.
No, sure.
Jerry, you'll be all alone down there, I'll be all alone up there.
So,
Stand around
You
with a
can't
red
sign up.
carnation or something.
so there's definitely some logistics things,
Yeah,
but it would
this-
definitely make sense for some group of us to spend some time, we could do it together as a weekend walk, to go to Hennessy and to go to
Yeah.
Endine, and just come up with a list.
Yeah.
And just say, okay, well, here's, the Bob School, here's five projects,
Yeah.
right? If we get, and let's focus on the first three. If we get enough people, then we'll go to 4 and 5.
Yeah,
Out of the first 3, there's, like short leg,
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
3 foot tall,
Yeah.
yeah.
right? But then, we have a small, medium, and large. But between now and,
Yeah,
let's say between now and the Trails next meeting, mid-April, let's go out onto these 2 sites and let's create a work plan,
okay.
right?
This
We'll
is
go out-
Coakley Middle School.
We'll go out and do some scouting.
Is that it? The Coakley Middle
No.
School? Because that
No,
only
that's
wants
the
10
That's the school.
That's the
10
school.
people.
That's the school.
Well, that's the one in
Alright.
schools. I was thinking.
Okay? All right.
I'll reach out to the person that created this and add in Endine and Hennessy. That's
It's good.
I
So this was a good,
apologize for it
this was
not
a good
being-
test.
yeah.
You just tested.
We caught him.
All
Well,
right,
do you
so,
want
Don't
right
fight
now
us to the
to
next
tell
meeting.
a lot of it is done through email. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
if we have more questions, we can go over them offline. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, so let's take a subcommittee offline
yeah,
discussion.
okay.
If we could-
And the subcommittee can meet also sometime.
Have yoga before the subcommittee.
Yeah.
All right, what else we covered? Let's see, Endine walk into Walpole is still pending. We haven't scheduled that. We'll
What are you looking for?
probably look into April or May for
This
that.
story here.
It is a lot, because it's from
May is
We-
coming up fast.
12.
We talked about a spring, in addition to Earth Day, a spring community work party. So having our own sometime around the end of May, beginning of June.
Mhm.
So that's on the calendar. Annual town meeting, we talked about a presentation or at least information available at town meeting. I was also contacted, Vic in his exploring has done his own scouting, and we've been invited to the Historical Society meeting on April 20, April 24th, yep. So I have touched base with Linda Rao, and
Yeah.
they're excited to see, several of them attended the library presentation in February. They thought it was great. What Linda has asked for, and I'm sure Vic, you've had that discussion, but
Mhm.
what Linda has asked for is if we could take our presentation and maybe refocus it a little bit and get more focused on the historical aspects of some of these.
Mhm.
So in line with the, why is Hennessy named Hennessy, or why is the Endine important? What used to go on in the Endine property? So
Don't
if,
wanna know.
and I'm sure they could teach us. I'm sure, yeah, well, let me rephrase that. Hold that. Yeah, that was a bad thing for me to say. Right?
I can tell you stories, but we'll learn that
Yeah.
later.
We'll bring the wine.
Yeah.
Offline.
Offline.
One
The
important.
big ash.
Marguerite? Careful. Marguerite?
There was, on the Historical Society thing, a point to make is that this their chance to make history themselves, because, as I've said in many presentations, we are all making history every day. So not only do we have the historical aspect of who are these things named after, but also you are shaping the history of the town going forward. And by involvement in these projects, and even if it's picking up trash or, scooping the poop, whatever, you are helping to set the course for the future. So, as somebody who writes history and reads a lot of history, the things that I think are important to remember is that you're building on the foundation of the people who went before, and you yourself are part of what will be the foundation for the next generation.
Amen.
Well said.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interest.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
tremendous.
interest out of the society, the Historical Society.
Yeah.
It's just one more group that they're plugged in, they want to know more. They want to go out to these sites because you've got somebody who lives in, Father Mac's area and they've never, ever even heard of Peswick Park,
Yeah.
right? So these are the kind of things that we're building history every day. Good point. Yep. Anything I think we've
So
kind
who's going to be the point person? I know you have Vic here, but are you?
I'm
you're
gonna be out of
you're not gonna be
town.
out of town again.
That's why they said yes.
Bring it
On
on
the
this
road
then.
again?
So we need a point person for this.
Yeah, so we'll have a subcommittee specifically for that
And I'll
one.
certainly help on that. This is
Okay.
for the Historical
you're
Society
not gonna-
meeting
Because
of
it's April.
of April 24th.
Is this
I'll
what
be
you
out of
set
town.
up?
Yeah, that's the one I set up.
Thank you. So I'll be involved in that. I don't necessarily have to run it, but
Where you go?
I will be involved in that.
Okay.
I'm member two.
Of the society?
Yeah.
Oh, great, okay. That sounds like a volunteer too. So Craig and I will work on that as a subcommittee.
And I can help too. I'm going to be around until almost then.
Yeah,
I'm also a member.
Man, all those members,
Former
raise your hand.
Board of Directors.
Yeah, perfect, fine.
Is it gonna be a PowerPoint?
In the
Is that
board
what
of
you need
directors,
to do?
yes.
I'll have Susan vote.
But Sue's going to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, to move some
Yeah, there'll
chairs,
be a
move some chairs, I'll
PowerPoint.
welcome.
right.
Well, we can use the PowerPoint we used for the
Yeah.
library and
Yeah, we'll-
as a basis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
just shorten it.
Yeah, I won't be there, so it'll be much shorter.
Well, remember, it's the annual meeting, so that goes on.
Okay. So anybody else have anything to add to the next agenda? We talked about, we're gonna look at these maps and try to give some feedback to the mapping subcommittee. We're gonna try to take advantage of Bob's guidance here and try to come up with some ideas on what to, how to structure this, not only for Earth Day, but if we're gonna have another event, May, June timeframe. We wanna try to build momentum. We wanna, one of the primary things I think we want to focus on is trying to identify someone in each of these neighborhoods that is on the property a lot. If they have a dog, 2 dogs, kids, whatever, and they don't necessarily have to use the loppers or have a toolkit like Bob does, but if there are eyes and ears, then they can, we'll gladly send them the blank trail report, and they could just fire back some, tree down, whatever, trash pickup,
And
poop
Bob's
bags.
going to train us Saturday, 9 a.m.
Yeah, so the folks that want to come out Saturday, like I said, I'll be more than happy to take you
This
around.
Great.
This coming
This
Saturday.
yeah. And like I said, I'll be going out Sunday, so if Saturdays work for you, I could also do
Now,
it
Hope
Sunday.
Pond, is there one specific area where you'll be?
I'll be honest, I'm not even sure where we're going to be.
Okay,
You'll
so-
start,
The
where do you
main-
want to
the
go?
main- the
Where do
main
you want to
part.
shoot?
Well, we'll meet at Houghton's Pond. So
Yeah.
that's the main lot.
Main
Where there's a lodge there? Yeah.
There's like a snack bar over
Okay.
here and so forth. So
Okay.
we'll be at the area closest to the snack bar, but I'll be parked right there. I've got a Subaru wagon.
Okay.
And you'll definitely see me.
Do we
there.
need to call you first?
No, as long as who's going to be there Saturday?
I should be there.
Okay.
Saturday, good. I might come Sunday if it's
I guess.
okay.
Yeah, and like I said, we can keep it open. You have my phone number. If you plan to attend, just let us know. So
Okay.
we'll wait for you if you're late.
Okay.
Okay.
And like I said, I'll be out probably Saturday and Sunday. I can also walk Endine, and I'll give you a little feedback as far as
That'd be
maybe
good.
areas you might work
Great,
on.
yeah.
Should be a little
pallets-
drier now,
the pallets
too.
are gone.
The pallets are gone.
They're gone.
But I mean, the other thing too is the people that are going to take leadership roles. I would encourage us to do like a work event together. You guys come out.
Right.
It's kind of like a team building, if you will. And that's what you want. You want a good, team of leaders. So if you come out, you'll get a full training on all the tools we use. You'll get a full training on how to assess a trail, where the work needs to get done, possible solutions to deal with anything you see.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Just couple of other things. We're going to try to work offline on a newsletter to send out in the next week. So we've got a couple of good. We're going to feature the Earth Day as kind of a precursor to that, but just reinforce the schedule and lead people to the progressnorwood.org site and try to provide a little bit of information about that. Before that goes out, I'll circulate it, and if anybody has any comments, questions, whatever, we just try to keep it short and sweet, maybe 3-4 bullet points. But we also want to include the upcoming calendar event. We do want to get into the habit of a monthly newsletter, right?
And like a trail of the month thing on it.
Trail of the
That's a good
month, we
idea.
probably won't be able to hit that this month because we
Yeah,
would
that's
actually,
yeah.
we'd actually have to research a little to give people that guidance, but that's maybe the next session we
What a
introduce that.
quarterly newsletter.
Cool, yeah.
You might want to do a resources page too, because there's so much out on the web, and I'll give you a huge number of links. So actually, if you just added these links, that would give people plenty of information that they can go to.
That'd be great.
Great.
Or even give them a few links at a time so they're not overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, they can pick and choose.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea.
The Friends of the Blue Hills website is great. You guys have all kinds of things on there, and there's a photo contest, there's an annual gathering, and
Yep.
you really have your act together. But we definitely appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you very much.
There's also a
That was
trail
great.
handbook out there, so we have a link to the Appalachian Mountain Club that has a tremendous
Kind of look
handbook.
like that.
But we also put together a much shorter one that will tell you about the tools we use, why we do what we do. So it's very nice. I think it's like an 8-page. This is another very good book. The International Mountain Bike has a tremendous book that has all kinds of information. So.
And I don't want to close the meeting without recognizing and thanking all of you, but recognizing and thanking Brian for joining us tonight. Brian's active with Troop 42 and Pack 42?
Pack 42
Still?
and 247, which is the new all-girl troop being formed at the First Congregational.
Oh, great.
All-girl Scouts
Good.
BSA troop.
Perfect. Great.
Reverend Bagley, Reverend Bagley, Reverend Michelle is going to be the first Scoutmaster, just like the Reverend at that church
Ping-
was the first
Pingree.
Scoutmaster.
Pingree.
Pingree.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the reason they chose, if you take Reverend Pingree's 3 initials, that's where they got, you find them on the phone, 247. That's why they chose that,
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
that troop number.
And that's why Brian came tonight. 247, before there was a 617.
History in the making.
That's history.
So our next meeting is Tuesday,
ninth.
The ninth.
Tuesday, April 9th at 7 PM, right here. Thank you for our technical guidance.
She's back.
Sue, yeah. But thank you all for coming, and
Thank you.
thank you all, Norwood Community Media and out there in TV viewing land. Trails@norwoodma.gov. Suggestions, recommendations, feedback, recommendations on how to deal with poop bags, whatever it takes. So please contact us.
Spread the word.
Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.